It's time now for your weekly fishing reports and real-time outdoor news from the South region. This is Fox Sports Outdoors South.
In the northern half of the United States, they have the salmon run. The southern half of the United States, we don't have that, but we have something just as exciting. It's the annual spring rite of passage, the spring white bass spawning run. It's the one time of the year when hundreds of thousands of white bass push up creeks and rivers all across the southern half of the country to spawn. And it's to that end that brings us to arguably the most famous location in the entire southern half of the U.S. for spring white bass fishing. Behind me is the Sabine River. It runs a long ways from just south of Dallas, Texas, all the way to Toledo Bend Reservoir on the Texas-Louisiana border. And it's up that river that push some of the biggest white bass anywhere in the southern half of the country. On today's show, we're going to get out there and show you some of that fishing, hopefully catch a few and give you some tips and pointers on how you can plan your very own springtime fishing trip to catch these big white bass here on this river. We're going to take the Bass Tracker Pro Team 175 out, do a little scouting around. While we're doing that, we're going to be shooting you around your region for your local fishing reports from your favorite lakes, rivers, and bays from our expert team of reporters. So while we get in the boat and get started, first we take you back to the FSN studios for your weekend planner.
The Salooner tables look promising with the best conditions of the month predicted for this weekend. Saturday looks to have good conditions with the peak time starting at 9:39 a.m. Sunday's outlook is even better with the prime daylight activity beginning around 10:30 in the morning. Expect sunrise to take place at 7 o'clock with sunset happening at 7:29. And Sunday also features a new moon, so evenings will have little, if any, moonlight. We'll be right back with all of the current fishing reports from around the Southeast.
Hey, our sweepstakes for the month of April is going on right now, and some lucky winner is going to win one of the best sonar GPS units Lowrance has ever invented. It's the Elite 7 GPS charting technology, traditional 2D sonar and 3D sonar, all in the same unit. You can split that screen 3 ways and see them all at the same time. Plus, someone else wins a brand new Lew's BB1, the longest casting bait cast reel ever, plus a bunch of motor guide gear, shirts, and fishing hats. To enter, go to our website at foxsportsoutdoors.com or our Facebook page. Get entered now. Contest ends at the end of April.
Fox Sports Outdoors is brought to you by Academy Sports and Outdoors. Right stuff, low price, every day. By Mercury Marine, celebrating 75 years of marine excellence. By Stren Fishing Lines, the standard of dependability. And by Tracker Boats. It's more than just a boat, it's a tracker.
There's our first Sabine River white bass. Look at that. Big dude too. Sabine River white bass. If I can get my thumb in his mouth. Look at that. Woo! That's a pig right there. Hey, welcome back everybody. Fox Sports Outdoors today. On the road on the Sabine River. No, don't flop, don't flop. Catching these big old spawning female white bass on their migration run up the river. There. Man, there's a good start right there. Big, fat, spawning female right there. Well, we're not keeping them today, so we're gonna let her go back. The spring spawning run for white bass, really all across the South, starts about the 1st of January. They begin their migration. Normally the males go first. Then the females will follow in behind them. By the first part of April, the males and females are mixed, and boy, when it shuts off, it just ends cold. So you want to plan your trip 1st of January to the 1st of April. Now, if you want to come here, there's a great campground that is easily accessible to this location, and it's River Ridge Campground. These trips, these guide trips that they give there, book up to a year in advance. It's on the tail end of the run for this year. In fact, they're about done for this year. So you really need to be planning for next year. And let's take you to Tennessee and Kentucky with Crispin Powell.
The good news in Kentucky and Tennessee these days, short sleeves and warm weather. Guys, we've had some 60 and 70 degree days. We've had the nights getting progressively warmer. And just like us, it makes the fish feel good and the food chain just turn on. I'm gonna start out and tell you a little bit about some Sagar fishing. We had some major rains and some snow and melt and runoff the past few weeks, but all that's being pulled through the system right now, which is creating a bunch of current on the main river, and that's just had the Sagar ganged up. I'm hearing reports of a bunch of Sagar being caught on big heavy jigs tipped with minnows. Crappie fishing, just like the Sagar. Those crappie are moving out of their winter habitat, getting up on those shallow flats, main lake flats or creek flats that are getting closer to their spawning areas that have got a ditch running through there with shallow beds or brush piles. The Mr. Crappie Joker, chartreuse and red, I've been hearing some wonderful reports about some monster slabs being caught on that. Other than that, the big thing in Kentucky and Tennessee is the bass action. The bass are making a major push towards the bank, guys. Shallow stuff, KVD 1.5 square bills, red eye shad. The umbrella rig bite is still really good on any secondary points leading to, you know, like what you want to find is a gravel transition bank, especially if the rock changes from gravel to chunk rock, just to give them a little edge. But guys, the bass fishing's on fire and it's going to do nothing but get better for the next couple of weeks. So keep your fingers crossed for some more warm weather, and I think we're in great shape for just a record spring. Until then, we'll see you on the water. God bless.
Got him. One of the giants. All right, just a good solid white bass right there. All right, let's let that sucker go back right there. We're gonna take a quick commercial break. Catching them on light spin and tackle. One little tip here is I'm using braided line. This is Sonic braid right here. And you can get away with it because the water's off color. When it's murky like this, there's no chance that the fish are gonna see it. So you might as well use something really tough. I use about 20 pound Sonic braid. That's perfect for these conditions. Stay with us, coming right back to the Sabine River. There we go. Swimming down current. And coming up, female. All right, hey, welcome back everybody. We're doing a little springtime white bass fishing on the Sabine River today. How about that for a chunk? All right, back he goes. And let me explain to you about the cycle of a white bass. They live all winter in the reservoirs, in the lakes, fairly deep. In fact, they can go as deep as 40 or 50 feet. They're triggered by two things to begin this spawning run. First thing is temperature, water temperature. As soon as it hits about 50 degrees, it begins to pull those white bass towards shallow water and start searching out those creeks and rivers. The second thing is current. We've got a lot of current in this river right now. It's like a magnet to white bass. It just pulls them up the creeks and rivers. Then when they spawn, they do something very unusual. White bass free sprays those eggs. The females just broadcast those eggs out into the current, and then the males come in behind and broadcast and fertilize right behind them. And it depends on the movement of the current to hatch those eggs, and they hatch up here in the river and then swim back to the reservoir. That's the life cycle of a white bass. And again, January, February, March, prime times to catch them up here in these creeks and rivers. And let's go to Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia with Jimmy Jacobs and Bob McNally.
This report brought to you by Door County, Wisconsin, the sportsman's outdoor winter playground. Milder temperatures have arrived across the South, and the fishing this week is heating up in Alabama, Mississippi, and Georgia. This spring weather has the white bass active all across Mississippi. These fish are making spawning runs up the rivers and streams, and they move in large schools. Now, a good place to look is Bayou Pierre. It's a Mississippi River tributary in the south central part of the state that rises near Hazelhurst. Now, to find the white bass, target the sandbars. Look for the ones along the shore, the ones that cut out into the current. That's where the white bass will be. Another place to look is around inflows from creeks and backwaters. The murky water flowing in meets the clear water coming downstream, creates a break line. That's where the white bass will hang out as well. Now over in Alabama, the crappie spawn has begun on the Tin Tom waterway in Aliceville Lake. Now there's a lot of shallow water in Aliceville. It heats up quickly, so you get the earliest spawn of anywhere on the waterway. Try a 1/16 ounce jig about 18 inches below a bobber and drop it into the holes in the vegetation along the shoreline. Now down in south central Georgia, it's time to head to the Dodge County Public Fishing Area. 104-acre Steve Bell Lake is noted for its trophy largemouth bass action. In fact, 3 bass have been caught there in recent years that weighed more than 14 pounds, and each year they catch some 10+ pound lunkers as well. Now these bass are going to be at 8 to 12 feet and they're in a pre-spawn pattern.
This portion of the show is brought to you by the state of Mississippi, where fishing fun is year-round and where the Mississippi Gulf Coast offers some of the best inshore angling and offshore adventures anywhere in the world. So start your fishing trip in the true south, Mississippi.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Fishing Report for coastal Georgia, Alabama, and Mississippi. In Alabama, Captain Steve Lindsay is telling me that there's good fishing for trout and redfish, but they're deep. The water's still a little cool and the fish aren't moving real well, but he's catching good numbers of speckled trout and redfish, but they're deep. These fish are in 8 to 25 feet of water. He's using 3/8 ounce to 1.5 ounce jigs and fishing very slow. Over in Mississippi, the big story is sheepshead. There are some huge ones being caught. A lot of fish from 8 to 10 pounds. Those fish are being caught on live shrimp, good sized ones, in the bay around structure, like piers, docks, bridge abutments. Most of the good anglers that are catching these bigger fish are using barnacles as chum. They'll take a flathead shovel, scrape off the barnacles from the structure itself, and that helps chum the area, and they'll go wild for live shrimp. Over in Georgia, near Savannah on Tybee Island, Captain Brad Stewart is catching lots of sheepshead in water probably for 25 to 40 feet deep. These are deep water fish, but they are huge. He's getting a lot of 10-pound class sheepshead, and they're also catching some very nice sea bass. They're using fiddler crabs. They catch both sea bass and sheepshead. Well, that's it for the Coastal Report. Remember, get on the water whenever you can and take a youngster with you.
Fox Sports Outdoors is brought to you by Costa Sunglasses. See what's out there. By Luz, setting a new standard in fishing performance. Feel the difference. By Strike King Lures, #1 in fishing. By Lowrance Electronics. Find, navigate, dominate.
Right out here, edge of a big sandbar. That's a good white. Look at the fatness of that dude, will you? Let's just hoist him up. All right. That's a big fat one right there. Welcome back, everybody. You're on Fox Sports Outdoors. Today we're talking about white bass fishing. We're on the Sabine River, deep East Texas. And I'll tell you, a lot of these white bass are pushing 2 pounds. We've caught one that's been over 2 pounds, and then just a lot of solid ones that probably wouldn't quite go 2 pounds. Let me tell you about what's going on here. We've had a big rain upstream, upriver, just south of Dallas-Fort Worth, about a 2-inch rain, and it made this river rise about 6 feet. Made it muddy, dirty, a lot of debris floating down it, and made the conditions real difficult. But what we've been able to do is key in on some little ditches and creeks and feeders into the river that are a little bit clearer. You can see on the right side of your screen that water is clearer, and then on the left-hand side is the actual river, and it's a lot muddier and a lot dirtier. So that's one of the keys. If you find yourself in this kind of a condition, which you very often can in the springtime, rains, muddies things up, changes everything, look for those little feeder creeks like that one. All right, let's check in with some more fishing reports from your local area.
Hey folks, Captain E here with your Carolinas Report, brought to you this week by Marshall's Marine, located in Lake City and Georgetown, South Carolina. We're your bass boat specialist since 1969. For all your nitro and bass tracker needs, visit www.marshallsmarine.com. And with spring rolling in, the water temperatures are rising and the bass are moving up on the beds. Recently, Fishers of Men contested a tournament on the Santee Lake system where 28.6 was your winning bag limit for 5 fish, with a 9.8 pound largemouth taking home the Big Bass Award. Things are going to increase as this water temperature warms up. Concentrate on those bedding areas with buzz baits and get ready to start snatching these fish right off the bed. Also in the freshwater fishery, striped bass are heating up. Strom Thurmond Lake reports some big fish coming in, as well as Santee Cooper and the Pax Landing boys say that they are there. They're starting to see some larger numbers of keepers coming out of that river system, and it's sure to get better every week as this temperature starts to rise. Also on the freshwater side of things, you can concentrate on those crappie beds and know that those shell crackers and crappies are ready to go this time of the year. Moving on to saltwater. Man, oh man, I was out this weekend and the flounder are starting to move into the estuaries. Caught 7 flounder this weekend using my wedge tail from Egret Baits, fished on a little jig head. They're ready to go. It's that time of the year they're going to be following the bait in. And on the offshore fishery of the Carolinas, North Carolina, the Outer Banks boat Sushi reports great catches of big eye and yellowfin tuna, with some of the bluefin coming in at 100 to 200 pounds right now. Also on the offshore fishery of the South Carolina area, wahoo and tuna are heating up, and it won't be long those dolphins will start moving in right behind all that bait. This is your Carolinas Report, brought to you by Marshall's Marine. Remember, work smarter, not harder, and keep your chaos organized.
Got it. Yellow bass, look at the size of that. Oh, wow. That is a huge yellow bass. Yellow bass is a completely different fish than a white bass, different family, and they don't get nearly that big normally. The stripes down their sides are much more pronounced. He's got kind of a yellow tint to the bottom half of the fish, and they normally only get about 8 inches long, and that dude right there is about 1.25 pounds, something like that. That's a huge yellow bass. All right, back he goes. This trolling motor that I'm using in this current is absolutely unbelievable. This is the brand new Motor Guide X3 trolling motor. It's got so many cool features, I don't even have time to list them all, but I'll tell you the number one thing they've done with it is they've quieted this bracket down because of a composite square pin system. And I'll explain it to you a lot more on a YouTube video that I have up on the how-to section of our YouTube channel. Go to our website, foxsportsoutdoors.com, click on the YouTube logo, go to the how-to section, and then look for the video on the Motor Guide X3 trolling motor. It is a dynamite trolling motor. They've quieted this bracket down so much. It's the quietest bracket I've ever seen. It's got a composite flexible shaft, lifetime guarantee on it. It'll never break. Just tons of improvements. Unbelievable trolling motor for a very affordable price. Check it out on our YouTube channel.
Fox Sports Outdoors is brought to you by Excite AGM Marine Batteries. Starts like new, stays like new longer. By Gene LaRue and Bobby Garland Lures. With our baits, a good day of fishing is in the bag. By Motor Guide, trolling motors engineered for anglers. And by Nitro Performance Fishing Boats. Welcome to the big leagues.
Welcome back, everyone. It's time for our Ask the Pro feature. This week's question is from Brady, who asks, how does the walleye spawn compare with the bass spawn? For the answer, let's ask professional walleye angler Keith Kavayan.
Well, in general, walleye spawning is typically going to happen before bass. In fact, quite a bit before it. Up north where I'm from, it can happen almost 2 months ahead of time. Down south, it can happen even more than that. With walleyes, what typically happens is pre-spawn, they tend to congregate together, and it can be a great time to go walleye fishing no matter where you are in the country, because they're in smaller areas, and once you find them, there'll be a bunch there. Once spawn comes, it can get a little bit tougher to find the fish, and in fact, post-spawn for the week or two after it, it's very tough to find the big walleyes, although the little ones will hang around. So again, in general, just a little bit earlier in the year for walleyes.
Thank you, Keith. If you have a question for one of the experts, visit our website, follow the Ask the Pro link, and let us know. Now let's see which viewer wins the Costa Catch of the Week.
This week's winner in the Costa Catch of the Week contest is Tom Hall of Trenton, Tennessee, showing a 6-pound largemouth bass he caught at the fairly new Gibson County Lake in Tennessee. Now, if you would like to enter our contest and have a chance to win a brand new pair of Costa sunglasses, All you have to do is go to our website at foxsportsoutdoors.com. On the right-hand side of the front page is the Costa Catch of the Week box. Click in there, follow the instructions, and send us your photo. Each week, our winner wins a brand new pair of Costa sunglasses, and you can see all of the Costas at their website. Go back to the front page of our website, click on the Costa logo, and you can see all of the frame and lens styles, like the frame style that I've been wearing on this week's episode called Salt Break. This week on the Academy Sports and Outdoors Right Stuff feature, I have found the absolute perfect rig to catch these white bass, not only here at the Sabine River, but anywhere you want to catch them. This is my first chance to fish the brand new Lew's Speed Spin tournament spinning reels. Extremely smooth operation, but the thing I like best about it is the drag system. I set it perfectly for these white bass. When they got up close to the boat and made a big run, they could strip that drag very easily. Now, I rigged it on the brand new, again, Lew's Speed Stick American Hero rods. The cool thing about these rods is not only is it a great rod, a perfect spinning rod for this reel, but for every rod purchased, Lew's is going to donate some fishing gear to the Wounded Warriors Project and help our soldiers that come back home from battle to go fishing on their own. Fantastic program. Check it out at the Lew's website. Now, I rigged this up with Stren Sonic braided line, as I mentioned earlier, and that's great because in this off-colored water you can get away with that. And we caught almost all of these fish on the Bobby Garland Stroller soft plastic bait. It's got a little swimming tail that did a great job of attracting strikes from these big white bass. Last season on the show, I mentioned that both my wife and I were going to get our concealed carry licenses and begin carrying a firearm. We wanted to do that for two reasons. Number one, we wanted to be able to protect ourselves and our family should that need ever arise. But number two, we wanted to be able to do something in case, heaven forbid, we were ever in one of those tragic situations like has unfolded at so many of our schools, churches, and theaters over the last few years. Now, the process of getting that CCL was actually pretty interesting. We learned lots of things. We learned how to handle and clean a firearm properly. We learned that there are ways that you can get out of a potentially dangerous situation without ever having to use that firearm. And lastly, we learned that we were both more accurate on the firing range than we ever thought we would be. I believe one thing, and that's that the bad guys already carry weapons. You and I would both be better off if more good guys did. Hey, don't forget to join us on next week's episode. We'll be on at our regular time, 6 o'clock on Thursday evening, and a repeat airing Sunday morning at 8 o'clock. And if you're setting your DVR, be sure to set it for that Sunday morning airing because that time never changes. Hey, I think you and your fishing buddies or family would thoroughly enjoy a trip here to the Sabine River above Toledo Bend Reservoir on this big white bass spawning run that happens every spring. But you do need to book your trip early. The guide trips here fill up fast and far in advance. So let me give you that information one more time on Tom and Jane Gallenbach's guide service here. They'll get you out here, put you on the fish. It's a big river and a lot of water. They'll show you the exact places where these white bass will be spawning. They run River Ridge Campground. They can fix you up with a camp space, a cabin, and a guide trip. Hey, thanks for joining us. We'll be back next week. Until then, I'm Barry Stokes saying be safe, have fun. Bye-bye, y'all.